Hello and welcome to the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson. The Local Leaders Podcast provides a platform for successful business owners to share their stories, their experiences, their advice, and their ideas in order to help our listeners achieve more success in their business and in their lives. Get ready, another great show is coming up. Hey, good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson, and I am here today to talk a little bit with Sean today, Sean Lyons of Germantown Café out of Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome to the podcast, Sean.
Jeff, appreciate it.
Hey man, we're excited to have you and glad you're able to join us today. It's a big old hopping Monday. December 13th, and we're all getting ready for the holidays and the big boost in business. But we want to take this opportunity to kind of introduce our listeners to the business, Sean, and if you wouldn't mind, just kind of have you share a little background, a little bit about what you're all about, and kind of inform and educate our listeners who aren't in Nashville and don't know about you guys.
Oh yeah, so we are been in Nashville for 18 years. Kind of one of the main neighborhood restaurant bars that has been around before Nashville really started to get built up as a business, or I should say Nashville built up as a city. And so we serve traditional American cuisine with a twist. Usually it's those nostalgic dishes that everybody knows and loves, but in a very good or the best version of those, or in a slightly different way that people expect. But yeah, I mean, the restaurant was opened by a couple back in 2003, and they grew with the city until about 2012. At that point, they started to grow a little bit more, but actually, unfortunately, one of the partners passed away tragically. And in 2016, the original owner decided to pass the reins off to one of the current chef, and then to another investor. And with them, they took it a few more years. And then the tornado and COVID hit. So throughout that time, like I said, there was a giant tornado in Nashville about 2 weeks before everything with COVID happened. And in hindsight, it was a blessing in disguise because it gave us a legitimate claim to insurance, whereas a lot of restaurants were fighting to argue that they needed insurance at that time. So what that allowed us to do is it allowed us to do a giant a facelift, and then bring in new equipment, basically just refreshing the restaurant, which what it really needed after 16 years at the time. And during that time, I came on as a partner and to take over a lot of the operations. And so we're trying to freshen up the service, the food, and we're doing some new cool things with technology. And I'm pretty proud of how we're kind of stepping into the next restaurant generation. Providing choice to customers and more money to our employees and a better work environment. So we're excited for this next chapter.
And that sounds really cool and very well said. Thank you for sharing that. And you're exactly right. I want to just touch on a couple of points. One, with COVID, it was really difficult from a cash flow standpoint. A lot of people didn't get the help they needed quick enough, but it's a shame to say a tornado was fortunate, but at least in terms of creating the opportunity to do the refresh, thank goodness for small miracles, I guess. Assuming no one was hurt, there in the area, but that's always good to know. When I look at the website and things, it looks fantastic. The pictures and the look and feel of the restaurant looks amazing. So congratulations.
I know a lot of the that was one big thing that we changed. When you have a restaurant that's been around for 15 years and serves a clientele that's been around for that long as well, usually you need a refresh in order to re-spark I guess the city's interest and truthfully the interest of people coming to the city. Nashville, just like North Carolina, is one of those cities where people from LA, people from Chicago, people from New York are all coming into, and they have these really high standards of what hospitality and restaurants should be. And there's a lot of restaurants doing a really good job in Nashville, but as a whole, Nashville's kind of stuck behind it's grown so fast that the hospitality scene hasn't been able to keep up. And so with the refresh and I guess tighter training, I think there's a real opportunity in cities like ours to satisfy that higher standard that people are accustomed to in bigger markets, and truthfully, people with more money to spend and a higher value put on those things. So we're excited for that.
Yeah, Nashville it's a great city and a beautiful place to visit. And you're getting, you get all kinds. You got locals, a large local population. You got a lot of visitors that come as well. A place I'd like to spend more time in. But you mentioned stepping into the next generation of restaurants. You mentioned kind of technology and some things like that. You want to give us a little detail as to kind of what you've done to move the brand, I guess, forward?
So the brand before this was probably as traditional as it comes. Like you would walk in and it felt like Shears from an aesthetic standpoint, and it still has that culture of everybody knows your name. But what we've been able to do is provide choice to guests, which in turn provides more money to our servers and our back of house. And so what I mean by that is we are allowing people to choose how they want to dine. So if they want the traditional model of like paper menus and put a credit card down on the table and heavy touch, high service point service, they can get that. But if they choose to be a little quicker, they can actually use like table QR codes, and we have some really aesthetically pleasing, subtle ones that are not stickers on the table, and they don't look like pop-ups on a table either. So we got creative with how we presented those QR codes, but those people can actually choose to order one or two beverages on their phone, or they can choose to do the entire experience on their phone. So it's interesting. I thought there was gonna be a lot more pushback, and there has been a little bit, but in general, about 85% of people have been way more receptive and actually excited about having the option, which I'm excited about because, like I said, from a guest perspective, I'm one of those people that appreciates service, probably more than most because I've been training on it for the past 15, 16 years of my life.
Right.
But I also have a 1.5-year-old and a pregnant wife with another kid on the way. And so I appreciate the great service for when I'm there, and I appreciate the great food, but when I want to be out, I need to get out. Like even if the server's being perfect according to their service standards, I still want it quicker. And so I think I'm the perfect use case of what we're trying to offer. And a lot of people have agreed with me. The ones who are in my similar situation, people who are not in this type of situation, sometimes don't understand it. But after COVID, that's allowed a lot of people to open their eyes, whereas they may not have if it weren't for COVID. So basically what we're trying to do is provide choice. And when you provide choice to guests, one, they tend to be happier. And two, with tables, with like a certain number of tables in a section, with our style of restaurant, usually you have 3 to 4 tables per section. But when you have people that choose to have lower touch interaction and they find that more valuable because they personally want to get out or they want to have more control, it allows us to give servers 5 to 6 table sections or 6 to 7 table sections, and not sacrifice the expected level of service that people have. And so servers and bartenders make more money. The guests are happier. And I think, like I said, we just get to have a more profitable business, and we're moving towards that profit. And like I said, we're just rolling these things out, but they've gone much more smooth than we expected. We're doing some fun things out of a little service window that we built over COVID to help actually provide more money to the kitchen as well, because we all know that labor market is extremely tough right now. And so we're basically charging service charges out of the walkthrough window where people can only order digitally. And all those service charges get paid to lead cooks and sous chefs if they hit their food cost number that week. And so we're trying to teach them about a P&L and basically Miyagi them into being good leaders just because they're motivated every week by cash money. But also we can pay them the normal wage that people are used to being paid. And on top of that, they feel motivated like a server would to actually drive more sales out of a little spot of a restaurant. And then chapter 2 of that is if they're motivated to create that little corner of the restaurant, then we can maybe turn that corner of a restaurant into a quick serve that we could scale even quicker down the road.
Wow, that's the first time I've heard of that, Sean, in terms of everything that you're doing there. So really you kind of got three levels of service almost. Well, you do. You got the traditional, you got the quicker serve, lower touch, and then you got the walk up. Now, is that walk up an outside like walk through, like a drive through, or is it inside?
Yeah, it's purely walk ups. And so like basically everything that's off premise, whether it's delivery food from our cafe, and that walk through window is food and drinks too. In Tennessee, it's legal to sell alcoholic beverages to go. So anything food and drink out of that window has an automatic gratuity charge, which people seem to be more accustomed to with that super casual style. But yeah, all of that money goes to the cooks, like I said, if they hit their numbers. So we're trying to do something. It's the same, but just a little bit different, you know.
Yeah,
And we're using different technology partner to help us leverage that, because we use Toast in the dining room, which everything with Toast it's kind of one size fits all. And because they're trying to service so many restaurants and they're really good at what they do. However, we weren't able to do the window service plus that mobile ordering option in the restaurant with Toast. So we chose to use Bbot, which is much more customizable. So everything off premise is Bbot and everything in the restaurant is Toast. And luckily they communicate very well with each other. And so we're able to do everything legally. We're able to do everything quickly. We're able to do everything that we want to do with technology. Of course, we've hit our bumps in the road, but at the same time, it's, like I said, been significantly smoother than I anticipated.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, you using the walk-up window for online orders and all that? Is it flowing through that window, or?
Yep, everything online, and then, like I said, and through the window, we're doing something food that's slightly different, using similar products that are in the restaurant for the regular cafe operations, but we're doing them in different ways.
Gotcha.
So we're going to be offering, we haven't rolled all of this out yet, but we are going to be offering breakfast sandwiches in the morning and $1 craft coffee just to get people to come by really quickly, and to build habit through their habit. And then, so breakfast sandwiches, because it's a high traffic walking area.
Yeah.
And then we want to do bowls, because you can take scraps of really good product and turn them into small bowls that are still different menu items, but served in a much more to-go friendly fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to do dessert, because there's not a whole lot of dessert options in our area. And it's also pretty easy to do a little to-go dessert option out of there. And when, of course, we're serving booze, which everybody likes to take some booze to go. Also, a service charge on booze is pretty nice. And like I said, the cooks start to realize, and they aren't as bitter about the front of house, back of house pay discrepancy, because they have similar motivations to make that happen.
Yeah, I really like the way that creative approach to solving that variation in front of house, back of house, pay discrepancies and the perception of the pay discrepancies that sometimes the back of the house, would feel. So that's awesome, man. I really appreciate that. And I've got one more question about it, and that is the I guess traditional service versus the quicker service on premise. So inside the restaurant, did you divide up the space for that, or how do you make that work?
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely some hiccups in places, and we've had to work around some things. But in general, our full touch service model is built for speed. It's a very team-based orientation, or a team-based system where you hand things off, and there's high communication levels between staff to make this happen. And so it's already a pretty quick full service restaurant, but at the same time, the technology acts as like one of those quick walking paths in an airport. Like if you choose to get on it, you can move a little bit quicker. And so we have these little metal QR codes with the table numbers on them, and there's actually a feedback tool on the back of it as well. And it's very small and discreet, because we don't want to be too gaudy about it. It's right next to a vase on the table. And so if people choose, we basically tell them when they get to the table that they have an option, whether they want paper menus or digital. And if they want to have the full experience, they have that available to them at all times. But if they want to subsidize that with anything digital, they can do that as well. And so what people will do is just, hey, I want an extra glass of wine, but my server just left, and I just told them I don't want one. Right. My friend said I should get one, so I don't want to wait. So I'm just going to scan the QR code and order it on the spot. And so then that can come to them by the time the server gets back to them.
Yeah, that's awesome, because that happens all the time.
Yeah.
you forget to ask for something, or you forget to order something, or you forget something about, with your order that you forgot to tell them, no mayo or whatever. Yeah, I really like that. That's very unique. I'd love to come see kind of that in operation and kind of see how things are flowing, because it sounds like a terrific idea. And you guys put a lot of time and effort into coming up or thinking through this component. Did you implement, or did y'all get all this started, during COVID, I guess after the tornado, or is it more recent?
Well, I was pretty fortunate. I developed all the food and beverage for the Dream Hotel, which is a very entertainment-driven hotel with lots of concepts in it. So there was American Brasserie, a nightclub, craft cocktail bars that drive high revenue. So it's not like a traditional hotel. And they had local ownership, and they were out to do new things. And so when they brought me in, there was some of this technology that I already knew about, actually via Restaurant Unstoppable podcast, and I'm just a restaurant nerd, so that's literally all I listen to and look into. But so a lot of these things, when I came into the group to build their food and beverage, I already had a lot of these ideas, but just like most places, they didn't want to take the chance on too many new things all at once. So we rolled out a couple of them. And then when COVID hit, they're like, what do we do? And I said, well, here's the exact same thing that we wanted to do 2 years ago. And we basically got to roll out almost everything that we wanted to do, that I originally wanted to do. And so I got to see, with money behind us, and just owners that were okay with everything at that point, because it's just survival, what worked and what didn't work, what worked with what and what didn't work. And so I had the benefit of, having a support net under me when I was learning all of these things. Luckily, enough of them were successful that the owners weren't upset by any means. But I knew that when I came into this new restaurant, basically what partners might work even better with each other. And so here it was kind of a scorched earth strategy of, we were able to start from scratch, and therefore we didn't have to work with any legacy systems. We didn't have to work with anything that was outdated. We could go with what we knew was the most up to date, and what new spoke well to each other, which is really important for technology.
Yeah, that really is. And it does highlight the challenge for currently established restaurants and businesses that already have some of those legacy systems in place. You got to then take a bigger risk, because you may need to change those out or sacrifice in some of the capabilities and speed of service and different things that you're trying to accomplish when your hands are tied, I guess, with the old technology. So great opportunity. It sounds like you really maximize that to your benefit, and that really sounds like an awesome concept. So thank you for sharing that with us and our listeners. Hey, speaking of different challenges and things, because that kind of talks through everything you've done post tornado and kind of rebuilding the business and all that. How about from one of the big challenges that we're facing in the industry today is staffing, and I'm curious in Nashville is I'm assuming it's a problem in Nashville, but just want to get your confirmation. And if it is, how are you guys doing on the staffing side, and are you doing anything specific to try to improve the situation?
It's 100% our biggest issue. I think surprisingly reopening has been smooth, and we expected staffing to be an issue. And I expect it to be exactly how it is, but it doesn't make it any easier when you're going through it. The shot, especially in the kitchen side, front of house side is, luckily Nashville doesn't have as many issues with the front of house, because there's so many performers and there's so many people that moving here all the time that's what they do is hospitality. So I think if you have a great environment, great culture, getting that front of house is just, it's going to happen. Back of house is a huge struggle to get cooks. I was talking to some chefs the other day, and they said that the lowest amount that they're paying their cooks right now is $26 an hour with every single cook in their restaurant, which is crazy. But I think they need to be paid that. It's just hard to figure it out on the business side to make that happen. And so our solution originally, I still hope is the solution, is our walkthrough, our supplemental business revenue model of having that walkthrough window, or having off-premise business. I think lots of businesses have the opportunity to do off-premise, like just delivery. We have this walkthrough window in addition to that. And I hope that if and when we're really able to get that off the ground, that money can be can get people into that $25-$26 range on a weekly basis, without us, killing the bottom line. I think eventually, if we're able to grow a quick serve or some other models within the restaurant group, we can start paying people more. But it is a real struggle for mom and pop smaller restaurants.
Yeah, definitely so, because that's a high wage. So you are in Nashville, and cost of living is going to be, it's going to vary across the country depending on where you are. But you also have more competition in the area too. And I guess for most restaurant operators and owners, they've been able to continuously save money where you can, and then increase menu prices where necessary. I'm assuming you guys have had to do some of that as well to try to balance it, but it's still a tough thing to achieve, and to keep your costs where you need them to be to make a profit.
And this isn't like exciting or like shiny or sparkly, but I mean, the whole adage of having a great culture does help. They're having people that we have like systems that allow us that really encourage front of house to become friends with people in the back of the house in a professional sense. And we have people and technology systems that allow really good feedback, so people feel like they're growing past and they're getting paid in things more than just money. We have agreement among our investors and our ownership so far in terms of a potential growth plan. So there is opportunity, and we've laid out in very open book fashion what that's going to take from us as a company, and then as cooks individually. And if we hit those things, then there is opportunity legitimately for them. But I think the big motivator to keep people motivated is to have really short-term goals, and then a long-term goal, because the long-term goal is the hook. It gets them in, and hopefully it's true, but you need short-term goals to keep them motivated, because restaurants, we all have short memories, and it doesn't matter how awesome that goal is 5 years from now. When you work 10, 15-hour days, you're not going to stick around for much longer than a couple months, So that's, I guess, the motivation of why we thought of the weekly payout of service charges, specifically in the back of house, versus like a quarterly distribution or a yearly distribution. I don't think those types of bonuses or incentive plans work in restaurant, aren't as effective. I think we have more immediate needs that need to be satisfied.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and you guys are definitely coming at it from a different perspective. And it's just fortunate when you have an investor group or the money behind the business is in sync, with the folks leading the business, and you guys are able to come up with new and innovative ways to compete, because that's what we're doing. We're competing for people in order to grow our businesses, and things have to change, and you're really making a lot of changes. I'm really impressed with what you guys are doing. So congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was in school for business, we did you do case studies, and you always think about, I think there was like a Harley Davidson brand, and you try to, when they were kind of coming into the new generation, they were wondering if they should change their designs or change their look to, I guess, satisfy the customers that are not baby boomers anymore.
Right.
And they found a way to basically stay consistent with their style, but just market it differently in a new way. And so I think that was it still is very heavily a strong conscious or decision of ours, that we know that this restaurant has so much nostalgia in so many people's minds. People have been coming here for 20 years, which is over half of a lot of people's lives. And so being able to offer what they know and love, and then also offer an option to do something different for the younger generation, or just somebody who wants to try something new or has different needs, has really been beneficial. A lot of restaurants in the area, like Bar Taco, which is an amazing group, along with Barcelona, they do mobile ordering only, and I know that has alienated a lot of people. Luckily, they are so popular that they have plenty of people to fill those seats no matter what. But
yeah,
I don't know. I think the choice is the future, and the technology is just barely catching up to allow that to happen.
Very well said. And definitely, things that you've integrated into the business. So let me switch gears and just ask you. Look at the time here. been about 25, 30 minutes. So let me just ask you about marketing today. What's your take on the whole marketing game for the business that you're running today for Germantown Cafe? What are you guys doing? What's working? What have you abandoned? Can you just share a little bit about your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, before I was on board, what it really made up was there's a lot of like iPhone pictures, not the best quality, and there's a lot of like Facebook boosting going on.
Yeah.
But I think at restaurants at its core, a lot of people in the restaurant marketing world, I think the focus is still in the wrong place. And obviously I'm young and I still have to prove out these things. But I think that the focus still has to be, again, this isn't shiny or glamorous. It still has to be on the food and the service. Like, you can't get away from the best word of mouth, and you can't get away from pictures of food that doesn't look right, that don't look good. Like if there's sandwiches without layers, or if it looks like a sloppy or sandwich or a bad quality bun, it doesn't matter what you're doing for marketing. It looks like crap, you know? Yeah. I think there's a lot of people are focusing on social media, which you have to do, but I think they need to focus the most on the quality of what they're doing. Then you get somebody who's all right at what they're doing. There's so many agencies now. There are so many great photographers now. What we personally did strategically is we have a photographer on retainer. And so basically he'll come whenever we want him to come, and he'll shoot as many pictures as we want him to shoot. And we pay him a set amount every single month, very much like an agency, but it's just direct from us to him because we like him and we like how he does work and how he partners with us. And what that does is it builds a relationship, which builds trust. And over time, we don't have to tell him much. He knows exactly what we're looking for. He can call things out that aren't to our standards. He has a consistent look, which I feel is important in any kind of marketing and brand building, is consistency. And like I said, it allows us to get a large quantity of good quality photos, which is also important to posting consistently. But luckily, I have a friend who's a brand director who's just helping us out for now. She's really amazing. And at some point, I hope to bring her on more full time. But yeah, she's just keeping us afloat. And there's a lot more things we'd like to do with marketing. But for now, I think we're doing the bread and butter of focusing on good quality products, good quality photos, and somewhat regularity in posting.
Yeah, well, that sounds like the big keys to me, and I think just to reiterate what you said is focus on the quality of the material. So many people I've seen with websites and with social media, just that there's definitely a gap in the picture quality of the food items, and some don't have any at all, and it's all stock photos and things like that, and it's just not the optimal way to go about it. And I agree with you. Focus on that quality, invest the dollars in the quality of the images that you're getting, and then turn out, great content. Facebook and Instagram, is that your primary places for social media?
It is. And we definitely want to move into TikTok. We have lots of people in Nashville, lots of staff too, that are influencers of sorts. We have people that have been on The Voice on our staff. We have people that are professional comedians on our staff. So that's a benefit of Nashville. So we have people that are pretty good at those types of mediums. And so we have some fun ideas that we want to roll out. We want to roll out some fun things that are very TikTok friendly in the window. So we have lots of hyper local stuff that we're doing in a place like this. There are very strong influencer groups where they may only have 1,000 followers on Instagram, but they will show up to your restaurant with 50 to 80 people strong every week. So we have very strong grassroots marketing and connection building going on with one of our partners. So like I said, that's a lot of grassroots stuff, but yeah.
Man, you got a lot going on, Sean. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get some people to help us out with it over the next year.
Yeah, well, as some of these concepts and new ideas and innovations that you put into play, as they start driving revenue forward, and it's going to hopefully free up some capital for you to take those next steps, and not only have your photographer on staff, but get you a singer and a comedian and everybody else for TikTok, and you guys can just continue to rock and roll and rule Nashville. Hey, let me ask you, what's next? Now that I know you got a lot on your plate, and I know you're doing a lot of things, but are you guys thinking about any additional types of expansion at the moment? Or are you just trying to lock down and perfect what you got going today?
We definitely have thoughts of expansion. The first and foremost, locking down what we have, because you need people and cash flow to grow, and we're developing both of those. But after month 8, if it looks like we're hitting our revenue goals, we have permission from our investor to look for a second location. Most likely it'll probably be another full service restaurant, but if we can figure out this window, it could possibly be a quick serve. And then by year in 2025, we'd like to be starting on our 3rd location. And then, once you have 3, if everything is going as you expect, then it's easier to grow a little bit quicker once you have the people and cash flow of a few locations. So yeah, in 10 years, we'd like to have 15 locations of some form of food and beverage. In our ownership group, we have some people that are very experienced in the nightlife beverage world, obviously in this full service dining world, and nothing in the quick serve world yet, but we have some connections if we have to. I know one thing that I'm excited about, well, I guess it's a dream type of thing, is we have a very community driven, in the area that we're in now is very community driven, but it's very dense. There's lots of apartments, but also lots of houses really close to downtown. And, everybody is looking for these solutions for like how to relieve the third parties from,
yes.
from us. And I guess one of my solutions I would really like to try, and that we're opening the door of right now with the window technology, is just hyperlocal delivery. So with basically digital food halls, but with varying restaurants within the same umbrella of like a digital hall. So I would love to be able to get some electric carts to not spend money on gas, and to be able to have guests order digitally that live within a half mile of us, and then we can deliver food to all the different places, and we can do it much quicker because it's only within a half mile. The quality can hopefully be higher, and then that in turn would potentially lead to reusable to-go containers. That's a whole different business model in itself. I would love to be able to have glass or metal or plastic to-go containers that, just like washcloths that come to the restaurant or linen that comes to a restaurant, you distribute these to-go containers in a hyperlocal radius, and it allows customers to not have to have to-go containers in their cabinets, which sucks. And then you can return those, and we can basically provide them to restaurants for very cheap dollars, which will save restaurants money. And we can actually just charge the guests, but if we don't have to charge as high delivery fees, that can hopefully subsidize. So it would be exciting to be able to do some form of reusable to-go container hyper-local delivery in the future. But that's like the futuristic thinking, 25 steps down the road, but it's something that gets me excited to think about.
Well, you know what? It's a big vision, but it just reminded me of going to Aldi, and paying for your bag, if you neglect to bring
milk curtains, the bold milk bottles.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So it's I can definitely see that in the future, and especially with the younger generations, they're willing to to accept add-on fees and things like that for convenience and for sustainability and all the different things that people today are willing to pay for that old guys like me aren't accustomed to, and we don't necessarily love it, but we're not the future. So you gotta be thinking that way, and you're definitely a visionary and thinking ahead, and got a lot of great ideas and concepts. So I am sure you're going to rock and roll, my friend.
Now we just need a couple line cooks to put out the good old traditional moms.
I was about to say you got everything but enough people to cook, and that would be your constraint. So we got to get that fixed, and luckily you're in Nashville, so there's a lot of labor available, but like you said, front of house mostly, where there's a lot of part-time people, and it's not as big a challenge. But on the back end, it seems like you've got a really good solution in place, though, with the additional revenue or earning opportunity from the walk-through window fees, and to be able to get their incomes up to a livable wage and comparable to front of house. So, I mean, It really looks like you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's and kind of thought through this whole thing. And I'm sure you're going to make it happen.
I appreciate that. Like I said, it's a lot of thought and theory. So we'll see within the next year how much gets put in practice. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, you'll be a great case study for yourself, if nothing else. And somebody I'd love to be able to stay in touch with and kind of see how some of these things are panning out and what you're able to accomplish and where the future takes us, because you've got a great plan now, but who knows what comes next. Yeah, and in the world today, another mass change like COVID brought, could take us in another direction. But I feel like you're on the run and on the way, on the right path. And I wish you guys the very best. And any parting words of wisdom that you want to share?
I don't know. I think the biggest word of wisdom to both guests and operators is just to have empathy. I think restaurants need new ways of doing things. And so, again, you said that more traditional experienced clientele may not understand some of these changes, but there are definitely a strong group of people that really value them. So if you go to a place where there are changes, I guess just be inquisitive and ask why those changes are happening versus getting upset. And from our end, we have to be really empathetic to the people that want nostalgia and want something comforting after such a hard time. And I think we need to be willing to provide that as well. So I think empathy is a big thing that we need to focus on.
Well, that's greatly said and well put. And that's something that in the hospitality industry is critical, important, always has been, is even more so today. Especially with all the changes taking place in the industry and especially dealing with all the staffing and food shortage challenges we have, because people get upset and angry about wait times or not being able to get this particular piece of meat instead of that piece of meat, and a lot of these things are out of our control. So I encourage our listeners, if you're a patron, to be empathetic, as Sean has mentioned, and for all of our restaurant owners and workers and operators out there, the same is true. And I like the way you put that. You got to remember that people are accustomed to certain things, and you got to be empathetic to how they want to be served. But you've also got to kind of reach for the stars these days and find new ways of running a restaurant. So well done, Sean. Well done from all that you're doing. I wish you guys the very best. And for our listeners, again, if you're in the Nashville area, it's a great place to go out to. Germantown Café on 1200 Fifth Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. I think I forgot to call out the website. So it's germantowncafe.com. If you're listening and not watching, please check them out, order online, and experience some of the great food and beverage that these guys have. And Sean, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Hey man, it's been a pleasure having you and sharing all your experience and knowledge and just excitement and everything that you've got going on. It's really encouraging and inspiring for me, and I'm sure for our listeners. So again, everyone check them out. And over in Nashville, Tennessee, this is Sean. And again, we appreciate you being on. Thank you for listening. For all our listeners out there, it's another episode of the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm Jeff Johnson, your host, signing off for today. Thank you.